Live from the Big Sky Comedy Festival in Billings, Montana, please welcome future role model with your host, Natasha Pearl Hansen.
What's up, what's up, what's up? Yay! I'm here in Billings, Montana with Comedy Pop-Up. I'm so excited to be here with my team. You guys traveled all the way to be at the comedy festival with me and all these awesome comics. And today I have guest Dan LaMorte.
Yo, what's up?
Dan LaMorte and I have such a fun backstory, but we'll get to that in a second. How do you feel about being in Billings right now?
I love it. I absolutely love it. When I walked into the first show and looked at the people who were audience members, I was like, this is my crowd.
Yes.
A lot of guys with camo hats, trucker-looking people.
I feel like when people in the place like this see Dan on stage, they immediately are like, I'm going to fucking like this guy.
I like to give off the jolly white trash vibe.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you do give that off pretty well. And that should be,
I am nailing it.
At least you know your brand. You're so on point.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for another blue-collar comedy tour, and I'll get a catchphrase and sell out.
Exactly. Don't sell out. You're too young to sell out. Dan and I met doing another festival years ago. Was it like 4 years ago now?
4 years ago, yeah.
And how old were you on that festival? You were like 18 or
19,
something. 19
years old.
He was a baby. So
I don't even think I had a beard at that point.
No, I don't think you could grow one yet. So we were on this festival in the Hamptons together, and I was co-headlining it. And, you know, some festivals are, less established than others.
Yes.
And that was the first year and the last year of that festival. So it just was what it was.
Mind you, only 2 shows, too. A 2-show festival.
A 2-show festival. So the cool thing about it was I have a producer friend in New York, and at the time he worked for a big network, and he wanted to come with to the festival and also scout some other comics. So he helicoptered me into that festival.
Oh, I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He's still one of my best friends. Like, we just went to JFL together this year.
He was a nice guy.
But he helicoptered us both into the Hamptons, and it was the coolest experience ever. It's kind of a shitty thing when you're like in the 4th or 5th year of your comedy career to be helicoptered somewhere, because it never fucking happens again.
That's also the worst place to helicopter to, because I feel like that's how most people get to the Hamptons.
I remember thinking, man, is this what my life is going to be now? I'm going to be coppered everywhere. And then like it just doesn't fucking happen again.
Yeah.
And then we seaplaned back, and we landed on the East River in Manhattan.
Oh, you landed on a river?
We took a seaplane back. Yeah, we landed on the river.
I'm out. I couldn't even handle the foam pit at the trampoline park yesterday. I'm not handling an ocean.
Me and Candace were talking. I did Candace Thompson's podcast yesterday here in Big Sky, and we were talking about foam pits and what you find at the bottom of them. I was at a friend's place. I was at a friend's gym once, and they were cleaning the foam pit, and there was a straight up flattened dead mouse in the bottom.
Oh, wow.
And like tons of Band-Aids and hair, just like the weirdest,
I feel bad for whoever has to,
stuff.
Yeah, whoever has to clean the one I'm in is going to find my dignity at the bottom. So.
Oh my gosh. What's been your favorite part of being in Montana so far? It's been like 2 days now that you got here, right?
It's been 2 days. Favorite part? I like the festival keeps us so busy. So you get to see so much stuff. The trampoline park was fun. I mean, I'm definitely injured in many ways. But we got to play trampoline dodgeball, which was exciting.
Somebody sprained their finger as well, so everybody's winning.
That kid's finger is really purple. I also like the medical marijuana, the Montana medical marijuana. So much better than I'd anticipated.
Oh, I didn't even realize. So it is legal here medically.
Medically, I believe there was a guy last night at the show who came out and afterwards gave me some Montana medical marijuana.
Oh my gosh.
And it was fantastic.
And it was really good?
Yeah, I mean, it was the smoothest thing I've ever had.
That's what's so nice about here. Like, drinks are really cheap.
Oh my God, it's a different world.
Like, I remember I did this festival as a performer in 2014 for the first time. And I remember going to some bar and ordering a Grey Goose and soda. And they were like $1.45.
Wow.
And I was like, you Grey Goose though? And they were like, yeah, it's $1.45. And I was like, I will have 10.
The worst is when then you go back home and then you're like, can I have a vodka and soda? And they're like, that's $17.50. Like, it was $1.25 in Montana.
That's what's so funny is like the barometer of drinking and economy being a scale is kind of the same. Like, if you are a drunk person in LA, you have a lot of money. That's how you can tell if somebody has money if they're out drinking every night.
Yeah, you have to be very wealthy.
So you live in New York City.
No. Sometimes if I'm couch surfing. No, I live down the shore in Jersey.
Oh, okay.
I started in New York. I
Why did I
claim
think you
to be
lived
a
in
New
New
York
York?
because I claim to be a New York comic because I never really felt any attraction to the Jersey scene.
Yeah.
But I very much am a Jersey boy.
Is there a Jersey comedy scene?
We have a few good clubs, but it's very cliquey. A lot of the guys don't go into New York. They look down at you if you go into the city.
Oh.
Because they want to make their career in Jersey alone, which is just not plausible.
Why would you want to do that, though? Because New York's scene is so great.
Yeah, I think it's because the Jersey scene is much easier. It's a lower demographic of comedy. Like, you get away with easier jokes than you would in Manhattan.
Got it.
And so right away, I noticed that I wasn't going to like that, so I started going into the city. So I've always really claimed New York as the home.
Yeah, because every time I'm in New York a lot, and I always see Dan on the streets and McDougal Street.
I've never not run into you.
I always run into Dan on the street. I'm like, oh, hey, it's Dan. I'm like, I basically just see Dan every month.
When I bring my friends who aren't in comedy to McDougal Street, they call me the king of McDougal because I've been hanging out there since I'm 18 years old.
Yeah.
Specifically at the Grizzly Pear, which is like a dive bar, the comedy club. Mm-hmm. And I've been working there since I'm like 18, so I know almost every crazy person, homeless person. I know everyone on that street, all the drug dealers. Like, they're all friends of mine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the Grizzly Pear for one specific reason. I live in the Miracle Mile in LA.
Okay.
And there was this guy that used to hang out on his stoop in my neighborhood all the time. And I never knew why he was just outside all day on his laptop. He had friends stopping by and blah, 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 blah. And never knew what his story was. And I was randomly in New York like 5 years ago. Went into the Grizzly Pear, had no idea there was even comedy there. It just was like a cool dive bar.
Yeah.
Went in, there was one other girl at the bar. That's it. Us two in the entire place.
Yeah.
And I sat down and was talking to her. And after we got to chatting, I was like, yeah, I live in LA. I'm just visiting, doing comedy shows. And she was like, oh, I used to live in LA. Where do you live? And I was like, Miracle Mile. And she goes, oh, that's where I lived. What street? And I was like, Cloverdale. And she's like, that's where I lived. And she lived in the building with this guy. And I got his whole backstory.
Oh, so you got the whole story.
Yeah, I got the whole backstory from going all the way to New York City and sitting at the Grizzly Pear.
Was it as interesting as you hoped it would be?
It was.
It was.
He was a hoarder and couldn't go in the house. I always wondered, and now he doesn't live there anymore. So now I guess he just eventually got hoarded out.
Yeah, maybe
completely.
In 10 years we'll be at the Grizzly Bear and you'll meet someone who also knows that guy currently and you can check in on him.
Yeah, I can see.
He's just on a different stoop somewhere.
If anybody knows Stoop Guy, can you please meet me at the Grizzly Pear in like a month and 3 weeks?
I didn't know that in LA you guys called them stoops. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my parents are from Brooklyn, so it's always been a stoop.
I'm not sure if anyone calls them stoops in LA, but in Chicago it was a stoop.
Yeah, I grew up playing stoop ball. Mm-hmm. I don't remember the rules, but I know it was a game.
Yeah, we didn't have that in Wisconsin, but I do know of stoop ball. I have enough friends that grew up in the city. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Manalapan, New Jersey. Home of the Jersey Shore's Mike, The Situation.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and he is currently in prison, so I am now the most famous celebrity in Manalapan, New Jersey who's not in jail. So.
Oh my God, what is he in prison for? Too many abs or?
Yeah, tax evasion.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
He got sentenced to 8 months in prison. So for 8 months, I'm the highlight of the town.
Oh, wow.
Then he comes
Look
back.
at you.
No, to be honest, nobody really likes him in the town.
No, you're a young comic.
Yes, I would say I'm a comic who happens to be young because very little is young about everything that I do.
I know. And I feel like I gravitate towards a lot of people that are younger that I would never have known were young.
Yeah.
Like you don't act, what are you, 22?
23.
23. You don't act 23.
No, I somehow act like a grizzled war vet. I don't know why. I've not seen anything in my life.
Do you think that it was a good thing that you started comedy as young as you did because now you're in such a good place and you are so young and you have such a long career ahead of you?
I go back and forth about it because I started doing stand-up at 18 or 19 and it was a very weird world to grow up in.
Yeah.
A lot of the older comics, I don't like the term bullying, but they were very not kind.
Yeah.
So 18, 19, 20 were kind of weird years getting bullied by the older dudes. But now I couldn't see starting at any other time because it let me grow through that phase, go through that weird thing, and then come out of it as an adult who's been through that and knows what it's like.
And you got a lot of the young material like out of your way probably pretty quick.
Yeah, and unfortunately put it on an album.
I think the best people do that. You know, what was your album called?
It was called Not Enough Pieces. It was based on a joke that I had that unfortunately Maria Bamford had done after I released the album, and obviously she was much more famous. It was about a time that I was in a mental hospital and they would make you do puzzles, and the puzzle didn't have enough pieces. I was like, if there's a single place where there should be enough pieces for a puzzle, it's a mental institution.
And she ended up doing that same joke?
She literally had a bit, if there was a place that needs enough puzzle pieces, it's a mental institution.
Shit.
Yeah. And my album was not only named not enough pieces, but the cover art is me, a cartoon version of me sitting on the floor putting together a puzzle of my face, and the pieces of the brain are missing.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Like I went really intricate into it, and then like she did it on like the Chris Gethard show, and it went viral.
Did you spend time in a mental hospital?
5 days.
5 days.
Yeah, it was partially necessary, and partially I was arrested for selling weed and thought if I faked a mental breakdown, it would get me out of trouble. And it 100% worked, but it also made me realize that I was a mentally ill person.
Yeah.
Because no one sane does that.
That's a good point. So let's talk about that. How did you end up getting arrested? I love arrest stories. I love a good arrest story.
This one it's not that good. I decided my junior year of high school to start selling weed. I had just got my license. We left school with me and 2 of my buddies. So rule number 1 broken, 3 kids in a car of a 17-year-old.
Yeah, 100%.
We drive to the dealer's house, pick up the weed. It's all bagged to sell because we're going to sell it that night. And it was karma because I bought a bunch of dime bags, no, a bunch of dub bags, and then just put a dime bag amount worth into it.
Yeah.
To sell it to the younger kids.
I know exactly this. We used to do that shit too.
So we were going to a sophomore or freshman party that night to sell it, and literally 2 minutes after leaving the drug dealer's house, I ran a red light.
Oh.
Which usually wouldn't be an issue, but the cop pulled me over and he asked for my license registration, and they were underneath the sack of weed, which was in the center console. So I told him I didn't have it. And he was like, obviously you're 17, you're going to have your license.
Yeah.
So I got arrested, and I got out of all of the original charges were running a red light, distribution with intent to sell or some shit like that.
But that's not even that much.
No, it was not. It wasn't a criminal amount, but it was. Jersey is very strict on weed.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I got 5 tickets from it, but luckily the kid who was my co-drug dealer's dad was the chief of police.
Oh, that's so handy.
Yeah, so we got out of he got in trouble. I didn't. I got I got 1 ticket for blocking an intersection.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, I got a lawyer for Christmas that year. It was fantastic.
Happy 17th birthday.
Yeah, my parents were so adamantly angry and against the weed use, and now I've smoked and gotten high with my parents on multiple occasions.
Yeah, and that's what I love about getting older and being able to tell your parents about this shit, because I remember my mom caught me smoking weed for the first time because of AOL Messenger.
Yeah.
This is really funny. And if disc were still a thing, I would love to find a disc, whatever you can do to like translate stuff onto a computer nowadays. But I used to save all my AOL chats because I thought they'd be fun to read one day.
Wow.
I thought very future
you were
when I was a
ahead.
kid.
Yeah.
I started writing it, like that's what this whole podcast is about, but I started writing about like all the fucked up things I was doing, and I was saving all my chats. Yeah. So anything scandalous that was going on, I had saved on drives, like actual floppy disks. So like I don't even know how to exchange those into some other sort of medium at this point. But
you still have them though.
I still have them all.
Oh, you have to go.
They're multicolored and really cool. So I was basically bragging about the fact that I could smoke as much as I could and that I could make a pipe out of anything, because I was a bro back in high school, and I had to learn to love football and had to learn to love all, I can open beer bottles with my teeth because I had to wanted to become friends with dudes, and it totally worked. And I'm still that person. But yeah, so I was talking about all this stuff, and my mom obviously went through my floppy disks. What mom wouldn't do that? And she just put them in and read all the conversations. And of course she's like, oh, you're having sex and you're smoking weed. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm 17. What do you think? I live in Wisconsin. What else is there to do?
I would love to see the messages that she, like what they were. The worst is reading stuff you wrote when you were 17.
Oh, and I knew it would be funny to read one day because you make such a big deal out of everything. I remember thinking, you weren't at any Friday or Saturday, there was a cool party and a less cool party and like a stupid party.
And then Dan at his house.
And if you were And if you were at the cool party, you wanted people to know. So you'd be like, yeah, I was at this party and this person was there and this person was there and this person was there. And now I live in LA and I'm like, I don't want to see people anymore.
I just love the idea that your mom went through your floppy disks. It's just, that's such a, like, it's a serious thing getting caught by your parents smoking weed, but she caught you on floppy disks.
She caught me on floppy disk on my own accord because I saved them.
That's one of like the worst, the most uncool ways of getting caught.
I know.
AOL chat messages on floppy disks.
Just because I wanted to one day look back at my
was just like,
and
you know what? If I'm going to get caught, it's going to be dealing drugs.
Yours is so cool and mine's so tech nerd.
Yeah, mine would have been cooler if I was like doing it successfully for a year. I got arrested the day I decided to deal drugs.
Have you been arrested a few times?
3 times. All before I was 17. All before I was 18, I mean.
I've been arrested 3 times as well.
Yeah. Let's 2 mischief, 1 of the drug dealing.
I've told one of my stories on this podcast, so I won't tell my first arrest story. Oops, all of these are for drinking, but we need to exchange arrest stories because it's rare that I meet somebody who's been arrested this many times as well.
So one is a nice story, and then one is just dumb. My school bus in high school, we were really degenerate, so we would throw stuff at moving vehicles. Mm-hmm. And one day, a kid cut off a seatbelt buckle and threw it at a moving car and shattered the windshield. And it wasn't me, but somehow it got put on me and I got arrested.
Oh, that sucks.
But my favorite one was when I was 14 or 15 in Jersey. We have mischief night. It's the day before Halloween. Everyone goes out.
Yes.
And, toilet papers, eggs.
Yeah.
And so me, my girlfriend at the time, and her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend, the 4 of us went out. We're like, you know what? We're going to fuck some shit up. So we went to a CVS and bought 12 cartons of eggs. Mm-hmm. Right there, mistake number 1, because the woman called the cops right away because she's like, obviously these are 14-year-old kids. They're not going to be making, 100 omelets tonight. That's not what's happening.
You have to buy other stuff with the eggs.
Yeah,
like send one person in for some eggs and some chives, and send another person in for some eggs. That was the right way
to do it, but we didn't.
Space it up.
so we get the eggs and we're walking back to her friend's house, and a car drives by. And I was an athlete at the time. I was a pitcher, so I picked up an egg and threw like a perfect spiral at the dude's window. The window was open, went into the car, splattered in the car. So the car stops, and this dude gets out, doesn't identify himself as a cop, but pulls a gun from his waist. So right away, being the gentleman that I am, I yelled in my girlfriend's face, "Every man for himself." And I ran. I was in much better shape. I ran. I jumped fences. I got to a little place called Strathmore, which had a movie theater. Mm-hmm. So I went to the movie theater, and I thought that was the best place to hide. Bought a ticket, saw a movie, and about maybe 3 minutes into the previews, the cops come in and they put handcuffs on me, and I was like, how the fuck did you guys catch me? And they were like, your girlfriend ratted you out. I was like, yeah, but she only told you my name. Like, you don't know what I look like. And he was like, look at your jacket. And I had my high school varsity baseball jacket on, which on the collar had LaMorte in big letters. So they just walked into the movie theater and saw my big white leather collar flipped up. Oh. And I got that was the first time I'd ever been cuffed.
Rookie mistakes.
So that happened 14 or 15. Then 16 was the seatbelt thing. Then 17 was the weed. And then I haven't been like technically arrested since. I've been in trouble. But.
Yeah. Well, one of my first drinking story I've told on this podcast, my second drinking story, we were at a friend's house. Like, I grew up in a small town, and all the cops knew where we were all the time. Like, the chief of police, there was the chief of police, and his daughter was my best friend. But the other policeman who like always busted the parties, like the one everybody dreaded, his daughter was in our grade too. So if she got caught being at a party, he knew where to go. So it was just like, it's just small town shit. Yeah. Everybody finds you. So we were partying at my friend's house, and my friends were in the 2 guys' houses, Eddie and Justin. They're these brothers, and they're still 2 of my best friends to this day. But they were they were like really high up in wrestling. Yeah. And they won like every state championship. And so when the cops came to the house, the dad turned us in because he was like, I don't want my kids to get in trouble. So we all went running, and the policemen that were coming after us, they're famous in our town, but 2 of them are really big guys. So me and my friends are like jumping off these embankment walls and just trying to watch them like flail and run behind us. And we all get put in the car, and we think it's funny because at this point, this is our second arrest. So we've been there, done that. Like the first arrest, I was like crying. The second arrest, I'm like, this is hilarious.
You don't have to act like you've been there. because you've been there.
We were just drunk. We were just drunk kids. We weren't doing anything wrong. There was like 6 of us. So we all get arrested. We're like trying to party in the back of the cop car, and they're like, "Shut up!" And I'm like, "I have to pee." And they're like, they're like, "You have to hold it." And I was like, "I'm going to pee on your seat." Like, this whole thing. But we were 17 by then, and in Wisconsin, you don't have to tell your parents when you're 17.
Oh, wow.
Somebody else's parent can come and pick you up, or however you get home or whatever. So we just, had to go down to the station and get picked up by somebody's parent. And, my parents didn't know about that one for a couple months, which was kind of cool.
Really? So you got away with it for a few months?
Got away with it. And tickets, not going to say worth it, but tickets in Wisconsin for drinking are like $130.
That's it? That's pretty cheap.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, worth it.
That is. If you get a story out of it, I'd pay $100 for a new story right now.
Exactly. And then my third arrest, I won't tell this story because it's long, but it happened at Mifflin Street Block Party in Madison, Wisconsin. You ever been to Madison?
No, never been.
And it's just a drunk fest, and I had just turned 21 years old, and I thought I was safe, but I got arrested for having glass in a no glass zone, and then it turned into this whole thing because I was like trying to rally all the troops. They put us all in this school bus, and like all these girls were crying, and I was like, "We're gonna be all right."
Did you get like the mass arrest handcuffs?
Mass arrest handcuffs, the plastic zip ties.
Oh, you got zip tied?
Got zip tied.
I've always wanted to be zip tied, but I don't have the drive to go to a rally. So
the full story is so fun, but that's for another time. So would you say you were kind of a troublemaker or not so much?
Yeah, I was always the class clown. I didn't notice it right away how much the word of mouth passes through schools, but like I would go from elementary school to middle school, and on the first day, I'd realize that the way the teachers put the desks alphabetically, LaMorte always ended up in the front desk in the front of the room.
Oh, sure.
Because I was just, if you were to walk down my high school once a week, you'd probably see my desk in the hallway sitting out there alone because I was just always trying to get bits in.
Yeah, of course.
Because I wasn't very, not to get depressed, but I wasn't like a very popular individual. So I thought being funny would lead to popularity. And every year it did until high school. High school didn't work.
Oh, really?
No, I hated high school with a passion.
That's so interesting because I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day of how much I loved high school.
Yeah, I thought I did until I really dug into looking back, my junior year, I threw the second no-hitter in my baseball team's history and wasn't invited to the after party.
Oh.
The no-hitter after party, they did invite the guy who threw the no-hitter.
What?
Yeah, that's how unliked I was.
Why? Was it just because you were uncool, or was it like...
Well, the thing was, I was one of the most popular kids going into... I left my town and went to Catholic high school, and I joined the football team because the football team meets before the school year. So naturally, those kids already know each other, so they go into school being the popular kids. And I was the funniest one in that group, so I went in being like the funniest popular kid. Then I'd never dated before, never even been with a girl. I was 14, 13, whatever. And I started dating my girlfriend at the time. We dated for 2 years. The problem was she was in a much different popularity group.
Got it.
So her friends already didn't like me because I was the popular ones that they didn't like. And then my friends, because I started hanging out with her more, stopped liking me. So then every kid
downgraded.
I lost every group because the lower popular kids didn't accept me. The popular kids didn't accept me. So I literally just ended up becoming like best friends with the grade below me. And they're still some of my best friends now. So it turned out okay, but I definitely wouldn't go back if I had the chance.
Oh yeah, I mean nobody wants to repeat. I would never want to do that again either. But I did have a good experience, and that's the thing though, is like it's fun to hear about other people's experiences because high school, some people had the worst fucking time ever. Yeah, and
I go back and I'm like, I want to. If I ever see someone from high school, I want to be like, why didn't you guys like me? I was skinny and had abs at that time. I should have been one of you. Look what you did to me now.
You're like, I had to put on weight. I had to get funnier. Now so how do you think people now that know that you're having success in comedy feel about you from that era?
From that era of high school, I don't know if there's much, I don't know how to describe it. Like everyone in my hometown calls me Hollywood, and I've never once even been to California. That's just like, for some reason, there's like, I come from a very small town in New Jersey, so there's this weird like, oh, he's the kid who's trying to get out. And
yeah.
But I will say that there's a different level of respect from some people because I buy all of my weed in New York City, and I was home in Jersey, and I was out of weed, and I texted a kid from high school who I wasn't really that close with. I was like, hey, do you know anyone who could hook some stuff up? And within like 15 minutes, there was 3 pot dealers at my house.
Oh, see?
Because it came so quick because they're like, oh, this kid might might be someone. So let's try to get him some weed really quick. I would say it's going up slowly, but I really don't give two shits about what people from high school think.
I'm the same way. Like, but I just don't feel like when I go back to my hometown fairly often because my parents live there. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm still best friends with most of the people I grew up with, and my parents and I are close, and my grandma lives in. So I go anytime I'm near the Midwest. I go back to Wisconsin. So I always pop my head into my hometown and go to the same kind of bars and see people and say hi. And I think that's a good way to stay connected to where you're from, because I would never want somebody to think that you like leave a town and think it's just garbage all of a sudden.
Oh, really? When I'm in the supermarket in my hometown and see someone from high school, I duck down the closest aisle and hide. I've walked through a restaurant and passed a table of kids from high school last week and didn't even look at them.
Oh, shit.
I just don't even, they're just not.
It doesn't matter.
It's weird. Like I had one kid from high school, like he tried to text me and we were talking sports, and it was like a very forced conversation. And then there was a trade in the sports world, and he texted me the next morning. He was like, dude, the reason I can never be a professional athlete is because I couldn't wake up to the news that I'd been traded overnight. I was like, you've been working as a Pizza Hut delivery driver for 7 years, and you wake up to that news every day. Every day. It's like, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to handle a trade if there was millions of dollars. But that's the mentality of my town. It's never we couldn't do something. It was always there was a reason we couldn't do it.
Right. It's a fear.
It was an excuse.
It's a form of fear.
Because it's a very most of the town is very wealthy, and it's new money, like a lot of mobsters and stuff. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I love mobsters. Are you friends with any?
My high school was very friendly too. My high school was very had open arms for kids from those types of families.
Dude, I laugh because when I leave this festival, so this podcast is going to come out on Tuesday. The day that this comes out, I will be in Las Vegas. I leave straight from this festival, land from Montana for an hour in LA, switch suitcases, and get right back on a plane to Vegas.
Wow.
My first time I was in Vegas was with a bunch of mobsters.
Wow. They are fun people.
Oh, yeah, they're fun. And they're ballers. I was 22 and got brought to Vegas with all these like high roller. They weren't even creeping on me. Nothing like that.
Really?
Got me my own room at the Bellagio. And I was like, damn, Vegas is fun. And then the second time I went to Vegas, I was 22 still and went on my own money. And I was like, oh, Vegas is really different. Vegas is really different without money.
I like how one of your memories is how the mobsters treated you well. It's like, who knew mobsters were feminists?
Yeah, mobsters were so fucking nice. I mean,
I think it's because if they're Italian, the matriarch is such a big thing to them. So all of my people that I knew who had connections to that treated women so well.
Yeah, and also when I was younger, I didn't carry myself. I wasn't a club girl. I didn't carry myself that way. Yeah. So nobody put me in that category. Like I just bartended at a place that they owned, and they were like, "You're so funny. Like you come to Vegas with us." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll take a free trip." I'll always say, like, if somebody tomorrow was like, I'm going to put you on a plane to Mexico, I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part of comedy is just the traveling. Like, how often do you get to do, a week of shows in Montana?
I know. What other reason would I? Okay, that's. I gotta backtrack. I've been to Montana. This is my 5th time in Montana, so I love it here. I had a wedding in Missoula a couple years ago and love it there.
Yeah.
Bozeman is awesome. I played in Bozeman once, but I've played here in Billings 4 times, and it's really only been comedy that's brought me to Montana, so that's the only read I really have of it, but it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I feel like that's most comedians. A lot of the places we go, I mean, it's not that we don't like them, it's just that the reason it's drawing us there is because we have work to do.
Right, and we like to. I mean,
I did a show 3 weeks ago in Lubbock, Texas. Not a single point in my life will ever be in Lubbock, Texas again, unless that same
what else would bring you there?
Back,
exactly. Where all have you traveled? What's been some of the cool stuff you've done as of late? Because it's really cool that you're 23 and you're 5 years deep into your career already. Like it's fucking.
I remember
badass.
Like when I first started going on the road, one specific club in Newport News, Virginia. I was 19. I was featuring at the time, and the bar was in the venue. So they made me sit on the back porch, and they wouldn't let me in until it was my turn to go on stage because I was too young to be in the bar.
Oh my god!
But yeah, I really liked Bentonville. I just got back from the week before I left for Big Sky, I had just got home from a 26-city tour. We did 26 cities in 28 days, I think. And Bentonville, Arkansas was surprisingly I really enjoyed because that entire town is financed by Walmart. because that's where Walmart originated. So it's like you're driving through Little Rock or like all of Arkansas. Then you get to Bentonville.
This
and
explains
it is gorgeous.
so much.
Yeah, they have one of the nicest art museums, which we went to, and I went to the gift shop very stoned and bought a $200 wooden duck. Everyone told me not to do it. It is now the centerpiece of my mom's table at home. It is gorgeous.
I see, and I think that's worth it. The only time I've spent in Arkansas, this is the weirdest thing. When I graduated high school, me and two of my best friends, we were like, oh, we're 18, we're graduated, we should take a road trip. And my grandpa is a jazz musician. He's like a really big jazz musician in the Chicago jazz scene. And the Blues Fest used to fly him in every year. He's amazing and works with the most talented musicians ever. And his brother was sick, so he had moved to Arkansas and was teaching at the university down there. And I was like, let's road trip to Arkansas, of all places. So we packed up our little 18-year-old bags and, got our atlas because there wasn't phones.
Wow.
There wasn't phone maps. Like you actually had to atlas your route out.
No idea how anyone ever did that.
And we road trip to Arkansas and we get there and we're like, here we are. And it was a dry county. Luckily, my grandpa had gone to the county next door and picked up a bunch of beer for us.
Yeah.
So we're all drinking and we asked the neighbor, where do the kids hang out? Like, where do we meet kids our age? And they were like, at the Walmart parking lot.
I thought you were going to say church.
Walmart parking lot or the right side of the Sonic. That's what the two places were. So lo and behold, we go to the Walmart parking lot and we hang out with a bunch of dudes in trucks for like 4 hours and drink.
Walmart's huge in Arkansas.
Yeah, Walmart's everything.
My first show ever in Arkansas was in Bentonville, the home of Walmart. This was before this tour, and we were doing a theater down there. I think it was a 400, 500 seater, and Walmart, part of their original Walmart, burnt down that day. And nobody came to the show because they were so sad about the Walmart. Hand to God, people were going to the Walmart and like putting flowers in front of it as if it was a person who died. No. We had 4 people in a 400-seater, and they made us do the show. So I was very hesitant about going back, but this time we did a brewery, and it was much more fun.
Oh my gosh, that's nobody was hurt, right?
No.
So it was
the
just
fire hurt nobody. They were just so
sad
upset
about Walmart.
Like when you're like, I was so impressed by the art museum. I was like, how did Bentonville pull this off? And I'm leaving. And in big letters, it's like art curated by Walmart.
Oh my gosh.
Everything down because all the executives have to live there, so they make it really fancy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's weird because I went to like one of the big bars around there and I was like, I'll have a Jameson and Sprite. And they were like, yeah, that's $12.50. And I was like, in Arkansas?
What?
I was like, why don't you guys just move to New York then if you're going to spend that much?
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have, like, the only thing I experienced in Arkansas, I went skydiving there.
Oh, I can't do that anymore.
I went skydiving in Arkansas.
I'm over the weight limit now.
For real?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't do it anyway.
That was the only time I've been, and I would love to go again. But we had to sit down at my grandparents' computer because we didn't know. We're like, what are we doing? Googling wasn't a thing yet either.
Yeah.
We were like Yahoo search engineing, at the dial-up computer where we go in Arkansas. And we found skydiving, and we were like, oh, cool. And it was like 2 hours away. And we had to MapQuest directions there.
I still use MapQuest.
Print them out.
No joke, I still use MapQuest.
So we're driving through all these cornfields, and we was like, basically you drive for 2 hours and take a left in some cornfield, and that was where the skydiving place was. So we were like, we hope we don't miss it because you wouldn't ever know. And we found it, and it was like, kid you not, it was a trailer. It was somebody's trailer.
Yeah.
A Cessna plane that they owned that had 4 seats in it.
Yeah.
And a barn that they kept the Cessna in.
That was it. So it was just a guy's house.
It was a guy's house. And so we show up, and the guy like answered basically in like a robe and his underwear. Yeah. And was like, come in, I'm going to teach you some.
And you went through with it?
Yeah. He was like, I'm going to teach you some stuff about skydiving, and then we're going to jump. And so I went first. He could only take one of us up at a time. It was an all-day thing. Yeah. So he packaged me up, folded up the chute. We went up. I dropped down. I was safe. Then my second friend went. Then my third friend went. And then we went on a final cruise because his friends started showing up throughout the day. Wow. And one of his friends used to be like a DEA agent or whatever. And so he was like, I want to do some stunts. And so like we got to ride up with him and watch him do stunts out of the plane. We did all this in Arkansas.
That's
spent the day with these guys. It was pretty crazy.
If I went to a skydiving place that could literally up and drive away after it killed me, I would not skydive there.
I seriously.
He made for a clean getaway.
Well, and the Cessna didn't like really shut all the way either. It was like a door that had been hit, so it just was kind of like whistling. We were just like in a tin ball flying through the air.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would never partake.
It was actually kind of nice to be in a plane that I didn't trust because the jumping out of it felt kind of good. Like once we got up in the air,
sure it
I was
feels
like,
fantastic. I mean,
I was like, great, I'm getting out of this thing. Cool.
I get exhilaration out of losing $50 at a slot in a little casino in Montana. I'm sure the skydiving will be thrilling.
Did you go gambling last night with a bunch of people?
No, I didn't. I did it the night before alone.
Okay.
No, me and Greg Santos, we were gambling the night before.
A bunch of people went gambling the other night, and I was talking today about how I'm not much of a gambler. Every time I go to Vegas, I'll put away like $40 and I'll stick it in a machine. And if something crazy happens, then I'm done. But if I lose it, then I'm done.
That's how I started. And then like I lost $500 one year on a Super Bowl coin toss.
Ooh, shit.
Yeah, there's something so thrilling about betting on a coin toss until you put too much on it and lose. Like you go into the Super Bowl already down $500.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I don't even have an extra $5 to give away, yet alone lose that much. Like that threw off my finances until now, I think.
Do you have any other vices or anything like that?
I don't think
Let's do it.
I don't think there's enough time on this podcast. I mean, I'm a big drinker. I think most people know that. I'm a pothead, and that's about it. I'm a big fan of Molly as well. And those are the three big ones. Gambling isn't as big. Gambling is just if I've done the other stuff, then
you're going to gamble.
Like some people smoke when they're drunk. I lose money. I did give up smoking though, so I did drop one vice.
I dropped smoking too.
Nice. I'm coming up on 9 months, I believe. So.
Okay, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I smoked. I never was that big of a smoker until I started selling comedy tickets in Times Square when I was 19.
Oh yeah, that'll make you want to smoke.
I need to smoke so much.
Yeah,
because I hated it. I really did not like that job.
Yeah, how did you end up doing that?
For stage time.
Oh, in exchange.
Instead of just going right into that open mic world, I was like, well, if I sell tickets from 7 to 7, I'll get one guest spot every night, and then I could go to the Lantern and bark there and do 2 shows after that. So I would do 3 shows a night. But my day was, waking up at 4 in New Jersey, leaving at 5, getting into the city, 6:30, parking the car, and then doing that every single day.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's why I had like a bitter taste about the New York scene, because I was doing a lot of this stuff quietly, where a lot of people don't do their stuff quietly, and everyone was like complaining that I wasn't putting in time, and I was like, I'm sleeping like
3 hours a night.
Yeah, 3 hours a night.
Shit.
And I was also a terrible salesman. I sold, I'm not exaggerating, in a year and a half, I sold maybe at the most 12 tickets.
What?
Total, not even in a day.
Oh my God, that's so bad, Dan.
I think I made $120 in a year and a half.
Oh my God, because you sold them for cash, right?
Yeah, and because I'm a very aggressive individual, so in Times Square, a lot of those people ignore you, so I would end up just getting into verbal confrontations with like families from Germany. Just be yelling at them. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't enjoy this. And be like, what do you mean you don't want to see comedy? Like, who are you? And like, and then, it's a weird life, but at the same time, it helps so much with stage time, not having to get caught in the mic scene.
You have to get the stage time. I mean, because in Chicago, I started in the open mic scene. And
you started in Chicago? Mm-hmm. My favorite comedy city.
I know, it's the best. And it was kind of the opposite of what you described. Like people were very friendly for the most part. I shouldn't say everybody was. For women who were cute, there were some people who didn't like that.
Really?
But that is the environment has completely changed. Like the mentality of that is gone. I feel not gone, but
Yeah, ugly people stay out of comedy.
But it was kind of a thing for some people. They were like, "Why are you doing comedy? Just like don't, Yeah. And you're like, nobody cares what anybody looks like. Let's just try to be funny here.
Yeah, it's like, do you realize the words are what's important here? It's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the scene was really welcoming. Like I didn't have any idea that mics were a thing. And I like to think of him as the godfather of Chicago comedy, Danny Callis, but like I booked him on I had this like open mic that I had at this pizza place, and I did it like once a month or twice a month. And my friend who was a stand-up would help me pick who to put on because I didn't even know who to book. Like I was an improv and sketch person for so many years. And so I was like, I don't even know who to put on this. And Danny came and did one of the spots. And then he was like, you want to hit the mics afterwards? I was like, mics? What do you mean hit? What are we hitting? And he had this van and we got into it. And I got to drive with all these comics and go like hang out and meet all these people. And I was like, oh my God, this is a whole underground scene. This is so cool.
That's awesome. My favorite Chicago legend comedian, Uncle Lair.
I don't even know Uncle Lair.
Uncle Lair is like a Zanies legend. He got married at Zanies. He worked Zanies a bunch. He was one of the first guys I ever featured for when I was 20 years old or 21. And he was, Zanies was the first club to ever pass me.
Oh, shit. In Chicago?
Yeah, because I dropped out of college and I needed to prove to my parents that comedy was something I could actually sustain without going to college. So I called up Zanies. I said, I want to audition to be a feature. They were like, well, you got to be here on Tuesday. So I drove over like through the day, got to Zanies Rosemont, auditioned, passed to be a feature, and then did a spot the next day because the headliner at the comedy bar gave me a guest spot. Weirdly enough, the headliner was Augie.
Shit! Augie's here. Augie Smith. Shout out to Augie.
And then I drove back home and I started featuring at Zanies. And then I eventually, this was the first year where I headlined the Rosemont one and the Old Town one.
Yeah.
And it's the most welcoming club to me. It's like one of the few clubs that I actually move like a decent amount of tickets in because Chicago's so much fun.
Chicago's fun, and that intersection is so fun and like vibrant, right? In the Old Town there, because that's where Second City is, and that's where I started.
Yeah, it was my first time headline there was tough because my weekend feature was like a Chicago legend, as in Marty DeRosa.
Oh yeah,
comedians you should know.
Fucking love Marty.
And having Marty feature for you is tough because he's a headliner. It was really made me work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's great though. I mean, there's so many guys in the scene that I really respect. And yeah, I mean, how was your experience first meeting Bert at Zanies?
Fantastic.
Right?
Bert and me are very close friends. We talk a bunch. We call each other from time to time. I met him at the audition with Rocky Laporte. Rocky had just gotten off Last Comic Standing the second to last season. So it was me, Rocky, and Bert. And Bert was so nice, introduced me to Rocky because I was starstruck at that point because I'd never met anyone from TV on comedy. And he's been so kind ever since. The way he bumped me up to a headliner was because I reached out to him and he was like, well, we'll see if you get some dates. He's like, but also we're writing a book for the 40th anniversary. Would you mind writing an anecdote? So I wrote this entire story about how Zanies was one of the most instrumental clubs in my career because getting past there proved to my family that I could do this. And, you know, that club means so much to me. And he was like, I had no idea. Like, we would love to have you headline the clubs. I mean, that's so meaningful.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and the staff's great. Like, I went out drinking with the waitress a bunch and I was telling her how much I loved the club and how important comedy is to me. And then 3 weeks later, she DM'd me on Instagram and she goes, your passion for the club and seeing how much you admire Zanies and its history made me reach out to the organization and see if they'd make me a manager. And I'm now the manager of the Old Town room.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So that was like, that's my favorite comedy memory to date because she genuinely felt like I loved the club so much that she wanted to make it a career.
Wow.
Yeah. So shout out to her, new manager.
That's amazing. And like I remember Bert. Bert was a very, very important person to meet early in the comedy career because this doesn't happen for anybody that listens. When you start comedy, you're just kind of on your own. You're just figuring shit out, right? But I happened to come from Second City, so I at least knew a little bit about like the business. I was already kind of acting and had a headshot and all that stuff. Before I performed at Zanies for the first time, Bert sat all of us comics down in the upstairs and like with pads of paper and gave us a printout and like basically told us how to manage the beginnings of our career.
Really?
He like gave us a talking and he was like, if you want to be a working comic, you need to do this. This is what you need to work towards. This is the type of material you should try to craft. He's like, you know, make it your own, but like if you want to work in clubs, this is the kind of stuff you need to be able to prepare. Yeah. And it was like, it was the coolest thing.
That
like, nobody does
change someone's career.
Absolutely.
That could push,
I still have that notepad that I took down.
If I ever get to the point where I could do a special and pick the location, I would 100% shoot my first special at
Zanies
Old
would be
Town.
Awesome.
I mean, it's such a crazy room and like the history there. I mean, Bert's just a cool dude.
Yeah.
And I wish more club owners were like that.
What is some of the, like, we're coming up on close to time, so I want to get like a good travel comedy story from you. Like, what's the weirdest thing that's happened to you on the road, or like a weird situation you've gotten in?
The worst situation I ever found myself in was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I was performing at a now defunct comedy club called Giggles Pizza. It was a full-time pizzeria that called themselves Giggles and only did comedy twice a month.
Oh, yeah.
Yet was called Giggles. So we get there. I brought my 2 openers. It was 2016, I believe. One was my friend Usama, who is a Muslim guy, and one is my friend Chike, who's a black dude. We show up, and the first question the owner asks us is if we know anyone in the mafia. We were like, look at us. We don't. I'm as Irish as they come. They clearly don't know mafia people. Yeah. And we were like, why? He's like, I need someone to fund my militia.
What?
I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I organized the children's militia of Oklahoma. I was like, what is it? I know what it is, but just explain. I want to hear you say it. He's like, well, I arm the children. I teach them how to use guns for when there's an uprising. And I was like, all right, this is frightening.
What?
So we go back to the place we're staying, and we're already in a weird mood because of that. And we're staying with a friend of a friend of a friend's like aunt or some shit. So we show up,
this
and
is crazy.
Yeah, we show up to her place. It's the 3 of us. It's a trailer. It's 100. There's no way around it. And I don't mind. You know, it's a free place to crash. We walk in. She closes the door, and on the back of the door is a gorilla costume, like a full head-to-toe gorilla costume. And I was like, well, that definitely, that's weird. And then I turn around, and I realize that her entire walls were decorated with prosthetic limbs. And she had all 4,
oh my God.
She had all 4 limbs, but she had like prosthetic limbs on the walls and like stuff in jars. Like the only reasonable excuse for that is if she like dressed up as a gorilla at a children's hospital and like handed out free limbs. But I'm pretty sure that's not what she was doing.
Oh my God. Did you ever find out?
No. So what happened was she bent over to put on the TV for us, and there's no easy way to say this, was not wearing any underwear. Mm-hmm. It was very awkward. She had a cat. She had a dog that clearly had fleas. And I was very uncomfortable with the situation. But my friends were like, let's just stay here and not waste money. I was like, great. So we go do the show. It's great. We come back. Her white kitchen table at this point is now black because of all the ants that are crawling on it. And there's a half-eaten like slice of pizza. And she picks
from Giggles.
Yeah, and she picks it up and eats the slice of pizza while the ants are on it. And I turned to my 2 buddies and I said, I'm going to stay at the Hyatt. If you guys want to come with me, leave now. If not, I can stay here. And they stayed there with her, and they lived to tell the story. And then that night in Oklahoma, I had all the cash on us from the tour, and someone tried to break into the hotel room and rob me.
Oh, shit.
But I had the little metal latch on the thing, so that caught.
Always the metal latch, guys.
Yeah, so I ended up almost being the dick and being like, I'm not staying here, and then getting robbed.
Oh shit! That is one of the weirdest travel stories I've ever heard.
I'm pretty sure the owner of Giggles Pizzeria is on the lam. He is on the run from what I heard. Shaved his beard and kind of just got out of town.
And has his children's militia following him.
I will admit, he told me he had 3 other militias in 3 different countries, and I did believe him because he was a Green Beret in the military, like highly trained special ops.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, his name was Marty.
Marty, do you know his last name?
If I did, I wouldn't even say it.
Marty will come and murder us all.
The weirdest part to end the story was just that his family,
Marty McFly,
he was married to the most beautiful Asian woman I had seen in my life. And she was clearly 30 years younger than him. And he had 2 of the most beautiful daughters I've ever seen that were like 20.
Oh, weird.
And all I kept thinking was like, I really hope he didn't steal them from somewhere.
Yeah, that's immediately my thought.
Yeah,
like,
because that does not look like a woman legitimate. Who's married to a militiaman.
Right.
But yeah, I've never been back to Oklahoma, and I don't plan on performing there again just because of the pure anxiety that it would be filled with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I have notoriously talked about my bad experience performing in the Bible Belt. So I'm pretty much never going to do shows in that part of the country.
That's I do the Bible Belt quite a bit.
That's just where I'll skydive and okay. So since you said you do love Molly, one good Molly story, and then we'll wrap it up.
My favorite Molly story is the first time I ever took it. I was a freshman in college. My baseball team went out for Halloween to a festival called the Bounce Music Festival, which was it's no longer the Best Buy Theater. It used to be the Best Buy Theater in Times Square in Manhattan. It was an EDM festival. And my buddy, his drug dealer, got really pure Molly, and he put it in capsules and then put it into individual pieces of gum and then resealed it. So we snuck it in, and we took them on the bus, and we got off the bus, and my friend started tripping before me, and he was like, dude, the lights are talking to me. And I was like, no, they're not. And then I looked up, and I was like, is that light telling you what it's telling me? And like being in Times Square taking Molly for the first time was just, I think there's not a better place to take it.
Oh yeah.
Then Molly had such an impact on me that I thought I was a DJ for like 6 months after that. Like I bought a DJ rig equipment. I started making like shitty songs.
Was it a vibrations thing?
Yeah, it was terrible. It was just, like my biggest one was we had a kid on the team who transferred from West Virginia. So I took the John Denver song and like tried to make it an EDM song.
Oh shit.
Country Roads. It was terrible. But Molly, I believe it's a very good drug in increments.
I've only done it twice. And I did it the first time when I lived in Chicago and I hated the come down the next day.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Really? I've yet to have a bad one.
So I didn't touch it for like 7-8 years. And then I just, about a month or two ago, me and a bunch of friends were up at, we were up in Big Bear.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, oh, you should take one. And it was just a bunch of people that I trust. And there's a guy outside carrying a chair. That was very strange.
With a mask on.
And she was like, take one. And I have all these like 5-HG whatever to take to counterbalance it so you won't feel that come down the next day. And it was fun to do it with like 8 friends in the fucking woods.
Yeah.
And Molly makes you like love shit. Like it kind of was kicking in slow for me. And I was like, God, I love, and my friends were like, oh, it's kicking in. And I fell in love.
Feel different.
I fell in love with a soda, man. Blood Orange Pellegrino. I became obsessed with Blood Orange Pellegrino because it was the most delicious thing I had ever drank, and nobody would let anybody drink alcohol.
Really?
Because everybody was already drunk, and then I'd taken Molly and we needed to drink water. So
yeah, that is true.
I was like going around to everybody. I was like, you have to try this soda. It's the best thing I've ever tasted. I was like in love with the soda. So now every time I've seen that soda out, it's like a new flavor. Since then, I'm like, that's the Molly soda.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. It's a drug that gives you, it gives you distinct memories because it's not a time lapse. You don't forget what you
remember
doing.
everything.
You remember it all.
It's kind of fun.
But the only thing you don't remember is how vibrant it was and like how, but the feeling for me, when I took it for the first time, it really changed things. Like it stayed for a long time.
Oh, interesting.
Or at least the mindset changed.
Kind of like stuck in you.
Yeah, the last time I did it wasn't as fun. It was at a karaoke bar under a bridge in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was anything but. It was very creepy.
All right, stories for next time. Dan, where can everybody find you on social media?
I'm a big Twitter guy at Dan LaMorte. I don't know why I spelled the easy one.
Yeah,
it was Dan LaMorte on Twitter. Just look for that sweet blue check and
that sexy blue check mark.
I know you have it too.
I do. Yeah, the sexy blue check.
Nothing makes me feel better about myself.
And anything else you'd like to plug coming up? Or do we just check social media and we find it?
Check social media.
I do that too.
I have an album out, not enough pieces, but it's terrible. But it does have 100,000 streams on Spotify. So if you want to also listen to how shitty it is, go check it out.
Awesome.
Yes.
I love it. And give him some reviews and be nice.
Someone just left a negative review on it on iTunes like 3 weeks ago. I was like, why are people still listening to this? Please stop.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
I know it's bad. I'll leave a bad review myself.
And this is my mentality. If you don't like something, just turn it off. Like, don't go back and be like, this sucked and this is why. And I wasted an hour. Like, why did you keep listening if you didn't like it?
Did you listen to track 1? It's about me fucking a goat. I know the album is terrible.
All right. We are closing this out here at Big Sky Comedy Festival. Big shout out to my network at Comedy Pop Up on Instagram or at CPU Podcast for coming out here and having the time of their lives with all these comics where we can drink for really cheap. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at NPH Comedy, Natasha Pearl Hansen, and you can follow my podcast at Future Role Model. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.